LifeLock, how can I help?
The IRS said I
filed my return,
but I haven't.
1 in 4 tax-paying Americans has paid the price of identity fraud.
What do I do?
My refund, though. I'm freaking out.
Don't worry, I can fix this.
LifeLock fixes identity theft guaranteed and gets your money back with up to $3 million in coverage.
I'm so relieved.
No problem. I'll be with you every step of the way.
1 in 4 was a fraud-paying American. Not anymore. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
100 Welcome to 100 Songs That Define Heavy Metal. I'm your host, Brian Slagel. I'm the CEO of Metal Blade Records. You can go to metalblade.com for more information on that. The next time you're in Las Vegas, or if you currently live in Las Vegas or the Las Vegas area, you need to visit the Metal Blade Museum. Now, not only are there artifacts from Metal Blade artists like Metallica, Slayer, Cannibal Corpse, Gwar, Lizzie Borden, there's also artifacts from bands that we had something to do with as well, like Guns N' Roses, Megadeth, Alice in Chains, Deep Purple, Thin Lizzy, Alice Cooper, all sorts of stuff. So it's a really great metal museum. It's located right near the Strip in Las Vegas. Also, our retail store is also now in the museum. So you can go pick up your Metal Blade vinyl, CDs, collectibles, shirts, all sorts of cool stuff. Just go to metalblade.com/museum for all the details. Super excited for today. More than I normally am, actually. Coheed and Cambria is one of my all-time favorite bands. I've been a huge fan of theirs since the early days. I think they're very, very important to the world of heavy metal because they bring something a little bit different. What they do is just so unique and different and phenomenal. And I've always loved them as a band. And as human beings, they're incredible people. So I'm really, really excited to have Claudio on today and talk about this incredible song, Welcome Home, which is, one of their signature songs and certainly very, very heavy. In addition to that, we'll talk to our good friend, Mr. Ryan Williams, who works at Metal Blade Records, about the production part of this song. But first, let's go up to Canada and see what Mr. Martin Popoff has to say.
Very nice, Brian, giving Coheed and Cambria some love here with Welcome Home. So this is September 20th, 2005. This is the band's first record for Columbia. They've got 2 gold records, right? This is the 3rd track, Good Apollo on Burning Star 4, Volume 1, From Fear Through the Eyes of Madness. Of course, they've got these long titles because this is all based on Claudio Sanchez's The Amory Wars, the series. He turned it into a book, of course, as well. But yeah, so this is the second of 2 gold albums, first album for Columbia. Great song. This is a band that does all sorts of stuff. Pop, postmodern, post-hardcore, post-rock, indie, prog. There's so many ways to describe what this band does, but this song itself is kind of an uncommonly European cinematic Blind Guardian labyrinth soundtrack metal, sort of European power metal-y thing, isn't it? With sort of cashmere chords in it. It's a good heavy song, beautiful, beautiful recording, of course, as well. It was the first single. There is a video, of course. It's a pretty simple video. It's just the band sort of miming, playing live kind of thing. But you do get to see the amazing solo in this song. So this is Claudio on his trusty, the big double neck there, trading licks with Travis and coming up with a really cool solo in this. But yeah, famous song. I mean, this, and like I say, pretty big album as well. 164 million plays on Spotify for this song. It was used in Rock Band, soundtrack of Xbox 360 version of Madden, NFL 06. So yeah, just a modern band participating in all sorts of modern things, and just one of these baffling, hard to nail down bands, but why would you want to? I mean, you could just call it modern day prog if you want. Vocals are mixed way up front. We got very melodic vocals. He's got kind of a very characteristic or idiosyncratic, put it that way, twang to his voice, but a lot of melody in the song, a lot of melodic vocals. But yeah, just this kind of cool cashmere / power metal sort of vibe to this song with a great rhythm section. And lots of albums since, and they were in Columbia there for quite a while. And like I say, they got 2 gold albums out of this. So credit to them for playing this complicated music with very conceptual as well, and being a big band with it. So there you go, Coheed and Cambria, welcome home.
I think I kind of stunned Martin a little bit with his information there, but that was a lot of fun, and it was interesting hearing him to describe Coheed, because it really is difficult to describe them because they are kind of all over the place. But for me, they're a really great heavy band, and I absolutely love them. So thanks, Martin. Always great to hear from you. Hey,
refreshing wild cherry cola meets smooth cream. The treat you deserve. Pepsi Wild Cherry and Cream. Treat yourself.
LinkedIn is pretty great at a lot of things, like helping you tap into the latest trends and insights in your field. We cannot stop your coworker from tapping her pencil. LinkedIn can help you find new jobs that align with your career goals. We cannot help you find the source of that weird smell in the office fridge. Ew. And while we can't stop your coworkers from bringing their hobbies into the office, LinkedIn can help you bring your career to the next level. LinkedIn is the network that works for you.
An all-new season of The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives is now streaming on Hulu and Hulu on Disney+.
Mom Talk has just been blowing up.
Whitney and Jen are on Dancing with the Stars.
Taylor is a bachelorette.
Saying that out loud is crazy. Like, that is huge.
But all the cool opportunities could pull us apart.
It's causing issues in everyone's marriage.
My whole world is falling apart right now. It's chaos.
Watch the Hulu original series, The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, now streaming on Hulu and Hulu on Disney Plus for bundle subscribers. Terms apply.
Hey everyone, Brian Slagel here, founder of Metal Blade Records. You know, I spent my whole entire life trying to make metal history and make metal better and promote metal as much as I can. And now there's a brand new way for you to test your metal knowledge and relive those iconic moments. It's called Metal Mondays, the official metal trivia game from Metal Blade and Pantheon Media, and it's free to play right now. Every Monday, a new game drops. From Slayer, Supremacy to Death, Metal 101, 80s, Metal Blade Classics, and tons more. You'll battle it out on the leaderboards, win killer prizes, and even score some exclusive Metal Blade merch. So if you think you know your riffs, your legends, and your deep cuts, prove it. Download, hit replay on the App Store or Google Play, or head to metalbladerecords.com/Metal Mondays and start playing today. Because in metal, there's no off days. Only Metal Mondays. Metal Mondays. Play loud, play true, and play to win. All right, we welcome back. We've had him on before, and he always does a great job. He's been in bands, he's produced bands, he's engineered bands, and he's still working with bands right now as A&R at Metal Blade Records. Mr. Ryan Williams, how are you, sir?
Hello, Brian. Thanks for having me once again.
Yeah, thanks for doing it, man. You do a lot of research, which I really appreciate, because sometimes I feel I don't do enough research. So you're always good with that, and it's always fun to talk to you about this stuff. So Coheed and Cambria, welcome home. Their kind of signature song. I had to do something with Coheed because they're one of my all-time favorite bands, and I think that they are definitely have brought a lot to the world of heavy music, including heavy metal, of course. So it's great to talk to Claudio about this one. And it's an interesting, so it's their major label debut. So the first time they had a real budget to make a record, and they rolled out the big guns with, Michael Bierbaum and all these guys who had, done a bunch of other major label stuff. But it sounds great. I love the way this record sounds.
Yeah, sounds fantastic from a production angle. Yeah, as you said, produced and engineered, recorded by Michael Bierbaum and Chris Bittner, mixed by Dave Botterill.
He's great. He's such a great mixer. It's he's really good. And then Andy Wallace just did one song,
track.
Not this one, but Botterill did a great job. And I remember when I first heard the record, I just blown away. First of all, you never know when a band gets signed to a major, like, what's going to happen here? They're going to go
right
poppy, or is it going to be something different? But meanwhile, they put out their heaviest record at that point, which is amazing.
Fantastic sonically. The drums are really punchy. Guitars are super clear. His vocals sound amazing. There's some really cool double tracking and layering. The words that came up, for me listening, were dynamics. There's really great dynamics on the track. It kind of starts quiet with the acoustic, and there's actually acoustic guitar throughout, which is really cool. And energy. I think they captured the energy and emotion of the song really well. It's not sterile at all. I really get that energetic vibe from it, which is sometimes hard to capture. I think they did record some of it live all together in the studio, which I think that adds to that.
Yeah, and I think that they were also pretty comfortable because they're recording it in Woodstock, which was home for them for the most part. So I think that added to the comfort of the record because it just feels like a band that's firing on all cylinders, basically.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the production also kind of takes you on a journey, which is cool. It's not just one thing the whole time. There's always elements coming in and out. The solos, even just something simple like the solos panning from left to right, like that's really simple but effective and keeps it interesting. The drummer, Josh Eppert, actually has a really cool Drumeo video where he kind of explains the song and talks about all the parts. So if people want, they can check that out.
Where is that at?
That's on Drumeo. It's like a drum-focused YouTube channel.
Nice.
And then also, I'm sure you know that Claudio talked on the Hard Lore podcast about this song, and I know you talked to him as well. But just great stories on there too, if anybody wants to dig into more of his interviews.
Yeah, he's opening up a lot now. I've known them forever, and he was always very shy. And he admits that. He still talks about how shy he is today, but a little less shy when you're talking to him these days. I remember when I first started seeing them, he might say 2 or 3 words to the crowd.
Really?
And we're always trying to encourage him. I remember I was backstage, and I think their manager might have been backstage as well. We were kind of talking about to him like, hey, yeah, you got to get out there and talk to the audience a little bit more. He's like, oh, it's like dreading it.
Another word that came up a bunch in researching this was cinematic. And I think that word gets thrown in there because of the orchestration and the strings and all that stuff, which is really cool, especially like you said, they had more money to work with. They could record like an orchestra. It was arranged by Carl Berger, he was a famous kind of guy in the New York jazz scene, I guess. And he worked with Jeff Buckley and a lot of other people. And that's an element that really adds a lot of dynamics and just even more emotion to the track too, because it's just very cool to hear those elements blended in there,
Yeah, and you've got the whole strings to it. There's a whole classical kind of element to it, which I really like because it's kind of in the background. I mean, you get to hear it a little bit out front towards the end of the song, but I like the strings there. And a lot of times when that's happening, it lessens the heaviness of the song sometimes. Yes. But I don't feel that it doesn't keep this song from being super heavy, and because the riffs and everything is so heavy, it just kind of adds a nice little background kind of part to it, especially when you're listening to it in headphones.
You're totally right, because a lot of times I think when heavy bands try to incorporate those elements, it ends up making the guitars like sound smaller or something, and it doesn't do that on this track, and that's really cool. So amazing track, very epic, and I would say neoclassical almost, with those elements.
100%. I mean, that's we talked about over and over again on this podcast. Where did metal come from, and certainly the blues is number one, and classical is right up there, and then we've talked about other genres like jazz and other things that come in, but this one definitely is has that classical element to it, even without the strings. I know Claudio said in the past, this was a very Led Zeppelin based song. The riffs, it's the big Zeppelin-y kind of riffs, and you kind of feel that. And again, as well known, I'm not the biggest Zeppelin fan on the planet, but I do love the musical element of it. It's the vocals for me that's a little bit different. So this one works okay for me. A Zeppelin riff, because it is kind of a Zeppelin riff-ish.
Yeah, that ba 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 ba. That's totally Zeppelin, but they take it in their own direction, which is cool. Yeah.
The thing that really kind of blows me out, really about the whole record, it's certainly one of my favorite Coheed records. Is again, it's the major label debut, and we all know, as I mentioned earlier, what happens sometimes with major labels is they come in and all of a sudden they go, okay, now we need to hit songs and make everything really nice, and they kind of went the other way, and especially with the production too, because I wasn't really sure. Like I'd heard those guys do stuff before, and I really like Botterell's mixing. He's really, really good. Yeah, they all did a really great job on making this whole record sound really good, and the band sounded good, and it was really tight. Again, it's this progressive masterpiece, which they just continue to keep doing.
Yeah, it's got the modern sheen of like a modern recording, but it doesn't sound overproduced. It doesn't sound like plasticky or fake. It still sounds like rock.
Yeah,
got that underground edge still.
I love these sort of records like this because it really is the band coming into form. Like this is, the earlier stuff is great, and I love all those records too. But this is kind of where Coheed was, I guess, maturing a little bit in their writing and the songwriting and everything, and it kind of sets it up for the album that follows this, which might be my favorite Coheed record. Very similar style and sound, and again, just super, super heavy. And It's interesting because people talk about Coheed and they get put in so many different boxes, right? It's like they're alternative, but then they're heavy, and then they kind of fit in everywhere. Yeah, where there's not one, and that's why I like it, because it's so unique and different. Like they have all those various things that they're into, and people who are alternative will love them, and people who are into super proggy stuff will love them, and then metal people will love them. You see that at their shows too. It's a very wide variety of fans, which I love.
Yeah, it's great. It never hurts to appeal to a lot of different genres. And something we tell our bands too, it's like, don't be afraid to kind of get out of your box and play different shows, appeal to different people. It's easy to get stuck in one thing, but if you can be broad and still be yourself, that's amazing.
Yeah, and they've done a good job over the years. I mean, they've opened for Slipknot, and they've opened, for a lot of different metal bands, and they go over well no matter who they're playing in front of or who's opening for them as well, which is really cool. It's really interesting though that they did it in Woodstock, and again, I know there's some really nice studios in Woodstock, but this one I wasn't super familiar with, so I was like, wow, it's interesting that they got such a rich, full-sounding record coming from there.
Well, it's true too, and you mentioned being their major label debut. They could have been easily pushed into like, oh, you got to come out to New York or to LA. I mean, you got to go here. And I think you're right that them being there was probably more comfortable, and that led to a great result. And being comfortable is really important.
Yeah, 100%. We all know that when, every time there's a really good record, you talk to the band before, during, and after, and there's always a good feeling in the studio. If ever there's a time where it's like there's a struggle, or you're hearing a lot from a band, they're like, we're in the studio, but you don't really like what's going on. It's like,
right.
That's generally not the recipe for a really good record. But it didn't seem like there was really any of that happening at all on this one.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, awesome. Well, dude, thanks again. Always love having you on, and always bringing good insight. So appreciate you.
Thank you.
How many discounts does USAA Auto Insurance offer? Too many to say here. Multi-vehicle discount, safe driver discount, new vehicle discount, storage discount, legacy.
How many discounts will you stack up? Tap the banner or visit USAA.com/auto discounts. Restrictions apply.
Very excited to bring our next guest on. This could go on forever, but I'm going to keep it short. He's an author. He's a comic book author. He and his wife run Evil Inc. Comics. And of course, he's the mastermind behind one of the greatest bands of all time, one of my favorite bands of all time, and my friend, Mr. Claudio Sanchez. How are you, sir?
Oh, I'm good. Thanks, Brian. That's really kind of you. You're making me blush. I can't even look at you now.
That's okay. Yeah. I mean, Coheed and Cambria, this is hard for me to pick a song, because for me, pretty much every one of your songs could be 100 songs that define heavy metal, if you ask me. But I'm very biased. But yeah, we have to do Welcome Home, because that's the big song, and it's probably the heaviest song that you guys have written, more or less. So I heard you wrote this in your parents' house in your underwear. Is that true?
Yes, I did. It just figures. It figures this guy did that. I think, my whole life I've just loved music, and when I'm inspired, it doesn't matter the situation, stuff comes, and it just so happened that particular day I was in, it was like they had like taken their basement and they turned it into like a 2-family house at one point. And so I was down there in the small kitchenette area, and that's sort of where I came up with the initial riff that opens the song and the melodies that would then inform what the lyrics would be. But yeah, it just so happened that at that time I was living with my parents. It was the band's third record, our first major label effort. The Amory Wars is named after that house. That was Amory Drive. That's where I grew up. All of the iconography and symbolism and characters and all that stuff is sort of based loosely on that moment in time. And I just enjoyed living there. I mean, it made no sense for me financially to get out.
I'm well with you there. I lived with my mom for the first 3 years I was starting the label, which I didn't really know was going to become a label. So I get it. I didn't move out until I was like 24, because hey, it's a nice house. My mom's cool. It's why pay the extra money, right?
Right.
So a lot of times when people write amazing songs, they happen very quickly. Was this song written pretty quickly, or did it take some time?
I think it was pretty quick, because in that moment, that's when I had the excitement. As far as like the lyrics went, I can't really remember, because at that moment in time, again, it's band's third record, but I was more of a guitar player. When I first started playing music, in bands, that was my thing. I was a guitar player. And so the lyrics to me were always, the harder part of making songs, especially since I was so introverted, still am, and needed the concept to kind of hide my story behind. So it was like, so for me at that time, my girlfriend, who is now my wife, we had a breakup, and that became sort of the subject matter of the song. And at that moment, when I constructed the riff, constructed the musical arrangement, I didn't have the lyrics. It was just melodies. So that part, the framework was quick. When it came to the lyrics, that was probably a little more me sitting in front of the 4-track recorder and trying to get whatever nuance that was coming out of my mouth, giving it, whatever syllables and rhythm, trying to give it actual language. That probably took a little longer.
And did it feel when you're writing this song like, oh my gosh, this song's going to be really great? I think this is like a really great song. Or is it just like, it's just another song I'm writing?
For me, I was just excited about it. Certainly at that moment in time. I mean, I never thought we were going to have major label interest. You know what I mean? Or like, I was just always writing. So for me, I was just excited about it because I knew that it was a different look for the band. I mean, we had approached things like it with the record before in Keeping Secrets, with songs like Cuts Marked in the March of Men, and definitely a little more aggressive, a little more walking kind of technicality that I would play and sing at the same time started to rear its head on that record. But this time it just felt different to me, especially that opening lead, because it was unique for me. And then but I was just excited. That's really all.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you can kind of tell. And it's epic is an understatement for the beginning of the song. It's like so epic. But what I always found really interesting, and I've tried to dissect, heavy music over all these years, and there's definitely various influences. Clearly, blues is the number one, and then, a lot of jazz. I talked to a lot of drummers here, which I didn't really realize as much, but I've talked to so many drummers doing this podcast that jazz is such a huge influence in the heavy music world. But the other one is classical. And when you listen to this song, you've got all this classical strings going on behind a lot of it. Did you envision that in your head when you were kind of writing it, or did that come when you guys got in the studio?
It was a little bit of both, because it clearly has that sort of Led Zeppelin DNA to it.
Yep.
So initially you're like, oh, I'm thinking Kashmir, I'm thinking strings. The song is dark. It definitely sets the tone for the record. So for me, I think I wanted it to feel kind of grandiose, certainly coming right out of the gate for the record and for the theme of that record. And I thought strings would be a nice touch for sure, especially when that staccato guitar part, when the band gets into it and the lyrics start. I mean, it just sounds like it's informing a string section.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great piece to the song. You really get it when you listen to it in headphones. You can really hear everything super clear, which I love that. Did you sit down to write an opening track of a record, or did you just sit down to write a song and it became like, oh, I think this would be a great one to open the record with?
Yeah, I think for me, it was probably just I was writing a song, and then when it came time to arranging the material, what flowed like, to me, it's like, it's always about like, not necessarily like the cinematicness of like the story and how the story plays out, but more so like just the mood I'm feeling as the listener. You feel like, every record, every song that happens feels like a page turn, and I'm interested and I want to know what the next one is going to be. So for me, I think when I knew where the record was going, when the material was there, that one just felt like the one that made sense, the tragedy that needed to start the record to pull people in.
Gotcha. I have so many questions. So you mentioned before that you're a guitar player first, which I've known you've said that a lot. So as far as the singing goes, did that something that you had sung before, or you kind of just learned it when you kind of were starting to get into a band, kind of like the way James Hetfield did, where he was a guitar player and wasn't really a singer, but he clearly formed a voice, and you have as well.
I had always sang a little bit in some of the bands before Coheed, but never like as the singer. And when it just so happened that it was kind of accidental that I became the guy, I think it was just because that's where I naturally went with my register, which is kind of weird because my voice is not like that normally. It's just kind of where it went. At that time, early when I started singing, it was so reckless. There was no control. I didn't develop the character that my voice would become until we started putting out records. I mean, you could kind of hear the transition between like Second Stage and Good Apollo. It's very rough. I'm still figuring out like what I'm doing. I'm still I think it's not until recently that I've really gone, oh, okay, I'm a singer. I should probably like focus on the words and really like, those sorts of things.
Yeah, and that's very James Hetfield like, because if you listen to Kill 'Em All, which is probably my least favorite Metallica record, I get in a lot of trouble for saying that, because James you could clearly tell he wasn't a singer yet. He was just learning how to sing. And then by Ride the Lightning, he had figured it out. And then, he became this legendary singer. Same thing with you. You're figuring out early. And I mean, you've got this unbelievable voice that is really, it's another thing that I love about specific bands, that when you hear something, you know who it is. Like for you guys, I hear 5 seconds of anything and I go, oh, that's Coheed. And then of course the vocal comes in, and then, if you didn't know it by then, you would know it perfectly. And you become such an amazing singer. It's so unique too. Like you don't sound like anybody else. You can't say like, oh, he sounds like so-and-so, or he sounds like so-and-so. It's kind of, I guess there might be a mixture of it, but did you set out to be original, or this is just the way you sound?
It was just kind of the way I sound. And then, I found other artists that sang like that, like in local scenes. There was this one band called Pumpernickel, I believe from Connecticut. That singer sang in a high voice. And then there was Joey of 3 before Josh had joined the band, who sang in a really high, like musical voice. So I started to find others that were doing it, so it didn't feel that odd. I mean, I remember at one point when I first started going up to Woodstock in high school, I would get on the bus from school. I would take the bus up to Woodstock and I'd play in the band before Coheed. And, in the punk rock scene that was developing there, I was certainly an outcast, but it was just how I did it. And, like the local zines would give me a whole shit ton of they would just brutalize me. But then I also saw these other acts, and it kind of gave me a little more confidence to be like, oh, well, I'm just kind of doing my own thing, and I'm proud of that. So, I didn't expect to ever really be a singer in a band. So whatever.
Well, thank God you are, because you're incredible at all of it. So we've got to talk about the Amory Wars, because people who may not know Coheed's almost entire existence is based on this entire backstory, that this is where the comic books and everything else come in. It's just, I've been listening to you guys forever, and I love every single record. I'm still not sure I completely understand everything that's going on here, but to describe it really briefly to people that might not, I imagine there's a lot of Coheed fans that have no idea that there's a whole backstory to everything. So just explain to it really quickly, like what are the Amory Wars and how does that go with Coheed and the records?
So yeah, the Amory Wars is just the science fiction fantasy narrative that partners up with the records. And you really, like you're saying, Brian, you don't need to know that part of what we do. I mean, I created it specifically because I was very insecure being the front man, and I needed a way to sing my story honestly in the music, but also have like a mask to hide behind. When you hear a song like Welcome Home or Wake Up, I mean, these are love songs about my wife and the breakup that we had at the time. They're not riddled in science fiction. It was just a way for me to be like, okay, I'm honest in the music, but I don't want to give too much of myself away to the listener, because I just have a hard time with that. So let me construct a false narrative for people to sort of live with to get closer.
So that's a pretty massive false narrative. I mean, the story is incredible.
I mean, dude, so the Amory Wars, like I said, the name is taken from road I grew up on, and at the time, and you've probably heard this stuff, Brian. So I feel bad being a broken record, but my dad was a drug addict. That's where the Dragonflies sort of come in. They inject Coheed, who is loosely based after my father, and it's just this story of like breaking from what you were almost expected of, like when people hear, like I was always so afraid when they, coming from and not that there was a broken home by any means. My dad was a functioning addict, right? So it was like, I had it good. So I just never wanted to villainize anybody by communicating that stuff, because I wasn't confident enough as a speaker. Still, I'm not entirely sure I am, but to convey these messages without like villainizing anyone. And because I just didn't think they deserved that, and that's why I constructed this thing, and it eventually just, when I see these stories, I see moments in my life and my growth, and the trajectory there, and being a kid trying to break away from the misconceptions of what somebody might think of a kid that grew up in a chemically dependent household. And that's essentially it.
Yeah, and that's why I think another reason why you guys are so great is you're very relatable. I think even if people don't know the story or everything, this whole sci-fi part of it, they can feel that through the lyrics because it's very much it feels very personal on times too, but in a really positive, good way. So you're doing it. You're doing it the right way. The other thing that's interesting about your vocal style too is that because you're playing characters too. There's a lot of different characters because obviously you're telling these stories. So in a song, you'll have, I don't know, 3 or 4 different types of vocals you're singing because you're kind of playing the different characters within that song.
Right. And I think I'm like very much like the emotions, there's so many weird moments like, later in the band's discography and songs like Gravity's Union or even Domino and like the ring announcer and stuff like that. I mean, I think I just like cinema. If there's any way to kind of create that visual, like inside the listener's imagination, and that helps, I'll explore it for sure. I think my register is strange in that way. Like there are places I can go that are probably not obvious. So I mean, the fact that it's there, I'll utilize it if I can.
Yeah, and it works so great. I love those parts because they're just so interesting. And the other thing is, you're writing very, very complex music, and you're writing very, very complex lyrics and melodies on top of that. It just blows me away, like how, I guess, because I'm not a musician, so I don't understand how this works. Like I could imagine just being a singer and remember the lyrics is one thing, especially stuff as complicated as what you guys do. But then the guitar parts and the singing at the same time, how do you do all of that?
I don't, I don't know. It just is what it is. Sometimes I find that doing more is easier. Does that make any sense? Like,
yes,
just creating a conveyor belt of like information here, and then this can just walk right over it. The voice can walk right over it. I mean, the other day I was watching my son. My son does like School of Rock, and he was playing All Star by Smash Mouth, right? And this is a song that I know because of like MTV and the radio and whatever have you, but I never dissected it. And I'm hearing him, he's playing guitar and singing at the same time. And he's playing very little. Like it's these like staccato stabs that are odd while he's like rapping the voice. And I'm like, that I probably can't do. So it's interesting. So it's like, so for me, it's like, I almost feel like the more information I can do with my hands, the easier it is for me to sing.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've talked to, like, for example, I talked to Mike Portnoy about that because he's a drummer and he's in like 7 different bands and they're all prog bands. And he's doing all these different things. How do you remember all this stuff? And he goes, I don't know. I just do. So yeah. I think there's a part of your brain that stores all that stuff and makes it work, which I don't understand because I don't have that part of my brain that is functioning apparently, but it's pretty amazing. So, the other thing that's really interesting about Coheed. So when somebody first talked to me about this the second record, and they said you should listen to this because it sounds a lot like Iron Maiden. I was like, oh, well, if you mention that, now of course my ears perk up. I'm like, really? So I sat on it for, I don't know, a month or two. I had to download it to my iPod back in those days. I got stuck in an airport somewhere, like crazy delay. Like, oh, I should listen to this record because I haven't heard it yet. And I listened to it. I could definitely feel the Maiden overtones to it, but it was so unique and different. And I know you guys kind of start out more as an alternative band. Kind of, it's where, again, the press says what they think you are, I guess. But it's somewhere in there. It's like kind of alternative. It's kind of metal. It's like all these different genres involved. I imagine you're listening to a lot of different stuff growing up.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you mentioned Metallica, Iron Maiden. I mean, those are metal bands that I listen to. Absolutely. I mean, the reason I play an Explorer is because of James Hetfield. For me, it's like I listen to everything, and I think that's because of my dad. My dad is a music lover. Music always happened in the house and it was always eclectic, whether it was classic rock, jazz, blues, funk, Latin music, he listened to so much. And then my mother on the other side was very much a contemporary pop person, so like the 80s came through and Michael Jackson and Madonna and Taylor Dane and whatever, so for me, it was, I just listened to everything and I just loved music. I loved it because it would always conjure up some sort of image in my mind when I was listening, like Sting. I loved Sting, like with the Police and without. I think that's why Coheed is so eclectic in what it is. It's hard to define. Sometimes we do display metal tendencies, and then sometimes we're doing a Stevie Wonder thing in a song like Evagria the Faithful. It's like, and I don't care. It's for me, it's like,
well, that's what makes you guys so unique and so interesting to me, because I love all that same stuff and the pop parts of it. So, going back to Welcome Home for a second, the pop parts of, all the singers you mentioned makes sense to me, because there is a very pop sensibility underlying in a lot of the styles that you sing, whether it be the choruses or whatever. And that's the thing about Welcome Home too, is like it's super, super heavy, and the lyrics are super heavy and angry, which is always great. But there's these moments of very poppy, sort of not heavy parts. They're just super poppy, and it could be like taken out of a Taylor Swift song or something. It's crazy.
Right. Yeah. Because we also, a lot of that also has to do with all of us coming from very different musical, bringing musical influences into the fold. And that's great. I mean, I just always, it's funny. I mean, I've had these moments in my upbringing where I focused like heavily on a type of music. Like when I started to break away from the identity that my dad was establishing, like by proxy, right? It's like, I started to discover the Misfits. I started to discover Iron Maiden. I mean, these are bands that my dad wasn't listening to, so I start to create my own identity. And there are these moments where I'm like very like hyper focused on one, but it doesn't live forever. Like, my metal phase, I remember there was this time where I would go to sleep to listening to like Obituary's Cause of Death and Suffocation's Effigy of the Forgotten. Like these were like, I think I brought this up in an interview not too long ago, because these were two records that I would like fall asleep to. Like
so peaceful.
Yes, I know. Slayer's like Seasons of the Abyss, In the Abyss. Like there was a moment where I was a metal person. Like I would go to the Spring Valley Marketplace flea market, and there was like a metal booth, and I would buy my Pantera Vocal Display at Power t-shirts and like, my Iron Maiden Slayer shirts. Like there was like a very hyper focused moment, and I learned a lot from that moment. And then I would push into something else and like devour that in a way.
Yeah, but that's the great thing. That's what makes it work and makes it unique, where it's just not one thing. That's one of my favorite things about what you guys do. It's all over the map in a really good way, like a really, really good way. I'm just always blown away by every new record I go. I have to listen to this like 15 times to kind of become somewhat comfortable with what's happening here. So speaking about that and songwriting of Welcome Home, one of the big parts, of course, is the guitar battle at the very end of the song, which is an interesting way to end a song like that, which has become this like massively huge song. You wouldn't normally say, okay, we're just going to end this with this crazy guitar battle at the end. Where in the writing process did that come up?
I think it was just, we were starting to lean into that world of like the soloing, like the identity of the solo. I mean, for me, I liked it almost more in the back of my mind. It was this fight, right? Like between my feelings for what was happening in my relationship. There were those feelings that were negative, and then there was those that were thinking of the positive. And so in a way, that duel of guitar solos almost feels like a version of that. And not that like that was like me sitting in the studio like, listen, we need to figure out how to make these solos feel like the good side and the bad side of this thing. It wasn't that. It just felt like that worked. And again, I think it was because at that time, we were like bringing in that identity to the band, and it just made sense. Yep. We're throwing everything at the kitchen sink with Good Apollo, because here we are now with big record label money. We're like, let's do this. We got Carl Berger, who did Jeff Buckley Grace's strings, like orchestrating ours. Like, let's just go for it,
And the whole record's incredible. Obviously, every record you guys have done, I think, is amazing, which is another thing that it just blows my mind, because you cannot say that. There's very few bands you can say about that have a long career that have put out a lot of records. Like every record's good, and they keep getting even better. Like the last record was probably in my top 3 Coheed albums of all time. It's such an amazing record. Like what keeps you motivated to keep creating music and creating it at such a high level?
I've been writing music since I was 13, 14 years old on cassette 4 tracks, and this room is where I write all of my stuff, and it's basically a cassette 4 track. But just now I had money and gear that I've purchased. And that's what I do, man. I wake up 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning before my son gets up, and I make him breakfast for school. Like, I'll come in here, I'll power everything on, and I'll just see what comes out of my head, right in the morning. And I'll be in here until I have to go outside to get him on the bus. I love it. It's not a chore for me. I love to sing. I love to play. I love to program music on the synthesizers or the modulars. I just love to explore sound. I'm addicted.
Well, as a fan, I'm happy to hear that. Lots of good music on the way. And so the other thing to complete the circle with Coheed are the live shows. And you guys are always incredible live, but what I've always really loved was just the repartee, I guess, between the crowd and you guys. And there aren't very many bands where you feel like it's all, everybody's at one. They're all kind of on the same plane there, the same level playing field, more or less. And, this crowds are singing everything. And half the time they're way louder than you guys are, which is amazing. And, your fan base is so unique and different because they are kind of all over the place. Like, you go to a Coheed show and there's the metalheads there, but then there's the alternative. There's kids from all over the place there, but they all love it and they're just so into it. And you guys always play phenomenal live anyway. And I love that when the fans react. It's just so cool. I hear them, everybody singing, and I'll even get into it sometimes with my terrible voice.
No, all voices is great. I love it. It's like church, Coheed church. That's what we're doing here, Brian. We're just that's what the Amory Wars is. It's really just my way of constructing the next religion. I mean, I don't know if you know this, Brian, but every show we play, I bury a set of the Amory Wars outside, just in case shit's supposed to, hits the fan, like, somebody 300 years from now digs it up and there we go,
That storyline could be the future the way it is. But yeah, but it's always really great. And then you also do these things, which always blow my mind. You do these never-ender things where you'll play an entire record. And back in the day, you did 4 albums, different albums, a different one every night. How do you remember all that stuff?
I know that part is kind of tough sometimes. That I can't lie, but I do enjoy it. We did that. That's the initial Never Ender. We did the 4 nights. I would like to at some point do an official like Never Ender 2, but we have done incarnations. But we do like those incarnations of Never Ender where it's like, maybe a record here or there we'll tribute, or we'll do the cruise, the SS Never Ender. Things like that. Like I love that this band has figured out that and has cultivated a family in the fandom that allows us to do that thing. Sometimes I like to think of us as like punk rock Grateful Dead. We like to think of ourselves as that. It's super cool. Like I mean, it's that we have that sort of devout fan base that will allow us to kind of do these odd things that just really work for us.
Yeah, one of my favorite Coheed stories that you might not understand because you're not a sports guy, but there's a woman named Jackie Redmond who covers hockey for TNT now, and she was on the NHL Network, and she does it for Canada. She's also doing the WWE as well, so you might know her from there. I'm lucky enough I'm a massive hockey fan, so I get to be around all these media people and stuff. They've invited me into their little world for some bizarre reason. And at the Stanley Cup Finals a few years ago in Tampa's a great place to have that there because all the hotels are downtown right next to the rink. And there's like one famous bar called Hat Tricks where everybody goes to. And so I was hanging out with all these guys, and I'm meeting a bunch of people that I see on TV and stuff. And they're all interested in me. Like, this is the guy that discovered Metallica, all that nonsense. But Jackie Redmond come up, and I was talking to her, and I'm a big fan. And she said, yeah, back when I was younger, I was really into, like Bullet for My Valentine, and, and she said, and Coheed and Cambria. And I go, oh, that's awesome. Those guys are really good friends of mine. They're the nicest people on the planet. And she's like, oh, that makes me feel so good. They feel like they would be really nice people. So, and you guys really are, which that's the other thing that's amazing to me. It's like, you're so normal and down to earth. When you're talking to fans and me, somehow you probably don't feel that way, but you are.
Yeah, no, we are fans.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm just every day. I know how fortunate I am that I get to do not only the music but the comics. I mean, these are things that I'm a fan of. Did I always want to do comics? I'm not entirely sure, But when I needed to find an outlet to be as honest as I could in the music, that made sense. That was the thing. I loved fantasy. I was like, why not create my own to help me? I want everybody to feel welcomed when they come into the Coheed circle. Like certainly on the cruise, like we're very one-on-one with our audience. We're walking the deck, and it's important to me. I'm trying to think of like, I've never had an experience with somebody in my position before. Like I've never had the opportunity, or maybe I have and wasn't sure that it was what I thought it could have been or should have been, so I try to be as welcoming as possible.
Yeah, and that's why I love our little world here, because we're all just fans. Like no matter whom you're talking about, the guys in Metallica, they're just fans, and they're really nice, normal guys considering how gigantic they are. Yeah, right. So yeah, it makes sense. But I do love the comic book part of this, because I'm not a big comic book guy, but it's really interesting because it does help with the story, because they clearly it all goes hand in hand. You've got the records and the story, and then you got the comic books that go in there. And sometimes I'll go through that and go, oh, I get, now I see what he's talking about there. Because in my mind, I don't know, and I'm trying to figure it out. And you go, oh, okay, that makes a lot of sense. So I know a lot of people that goes hand in hand. And the other great thing that you guys do is on every record now, there's these insane editions of all sorts of different versions and box sets. And like the last 2 boxes were like, 5 phone books high, and really, really cool stuff. And as a collector, I both love it and hate it because I have to buy all of this stuff. But it's so great. I mean, that's got to be fun for you guys to create that stuff too.
Oh, absolutely.
I know we love doing it on our end at Metal Blade.
Yeah, especially like, now with the new story, though Vaxxus, the story of Vaxxus, the last 3 records is connected to the Amory Wars, and the further down the road we get, we'll find out how it is. But it's like a different animal. It's not, we're telling these in like illustrated novellas that are accompanying the records. They're more photorealistic. So it very much feels like you're sort of watching a film of some sort. And then, to create the relic, like with the last record, we introduced the character of Blindside Sonny, and we actually made his helmet. And that was like a big undertaking with the sort of neurological, like kind of eye display thing. I don't know. It's so much fun for me because it allows me to flex another part of my imagination that I, somewhere in here I've always wanted to do. It's so cool. I love it. I'm so fortunate. I mean, right now up there I have Coheed and Cambria, the action figures up there, and like actually behind all of this padding on the walls, there's a poster of Coheed and Cambria, the characters. Like, we're trying so many things with the story. We've been talking with potential like game developers on like tabletop games, and I've been talking with Kevin J. Anderson, the author, to adapt the comics into novelizations that allow us to really sort of explore all of the nuance of the story, because there are some things that you kind of miss in a 22-page comic. When I say 22-page, like 22-page an issue. So we've been talking a lot, like going back and forth on all of that and exploring all of the voids and like the places that we couldn't go with the book, with the graphic novels. It's wild, man. I'm actually, tomorrow I turn 48.
Yeah, I was gonna wish you a happy early birthday.
Oh, well, thank you. But it's just, I think about me at 17 walking out of the house with a guitar and an amplifier, and basically lying to my parents that I'm going to school, and instead walking down to Nyack and getting on a bus and traveling about 2 hours upstate to go play in what would become Coheed and Cambria. And I mean, to be here now at this age, and it's so wonderful. I can't, like, this life couldn't get any better.
Well, keep doing it. Keep it up. Us fans, of course, appreciate all of that, because we always look forward to the next chapter of everything. So keep doing that. And thank you again so much for doing this. I really, really appreciate it.
Oh, you got it, Brian. Thanks for having me.
that'll do it. That was awesome having Claudio on. He's such a good dude, and really, really great to talk to him about this amazing song and this amazing band. So if you did not know about Coheed and Cambria, hopefully you do now, and you'll go out and check their stuff out. Thanks to Ryan Williams to talk about the production stuff, Martin Popoff as always, Lizzie Borden for our theme song, and the producer that makes it all happen, Mr. Christian Blatt. We will see you guys next episode.
One hundred